how are you related? Are you related to Soteria, or how did you become aware of
Yeah, no. I'm the
me?
CFO of Soteria. Yeah.
No, no, Amid is
Oh,
on the call also.
Oh,
I'm
And
yeah,
sorry.
sorry. Oh,
Hi.
hi. No, I just joined because I'm interested. My name is Ahmed Sheikh, first of all. I'm an assistant professor in material science at South Valley University. I joined this event because I'm interested in batteries, safety of batteries in general, and Soteria, of course. Uh, and because I do a lot of electrode synthesis and electrode testing as well, but especially the safety considerations of the lithium ion batteries and how we can tackle them is of paramount interest to me. Uh, Thank you for asking. Sorry,
okay.
what's your name?
My name is Malcolm. I run the Angel Group here in Pittsburgh, and so that's why I was. Now, how did you become aware of the meeting itself?
Well, I think I came across it either through Event Tribe website or LinkedIn events, one of the two.
Okay. Now, are you an investor, or are you doing? Is it more from a research perspective?
Uh, no, I'm not investing. I am doing a research about material characterization, material synthesis for electrochemistry and energy storage and conversion.
Okay. Um,
What about Soteria? The company is It's the first time for me to know the company. So could you tell me a little bit about the company? What does it
yeah,
do? How
I
big it is?
hold on one second. I just realized I never sent out the executive summary to everybody last night. Um, did I, Dave?
No, I don't think you did.
Okay.
I just saw the
No.
Yeah,
answer.
Hold,
no. Yeah, that's why
um,
usually you send a Zoom link. That's why I texted you.
yeah, unfortunately, I we leave on vacation Saturday, so I have a million things I'm trying to get done, and can I need to put a reminder on my calendar. So, hold on one second. Hi, Brian. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Hi, Malcolm. Good to see you.
All right.
Oh, hey, Brian. It's Elliot. I'm on. So just want to
Hey.
let you know I'm good.
Yeah. Gotcha. Hey, Elliot.
Hello, Brian. It's Ahmed from Egypt here.
Oh, hi, Ahmed. How are you? What time is it
Fine,
in
thanks.
Egypt? What time is it in Egypt now?
Now it's 7 p.m.
Okay. So not too bad.
Yeah. How much is the difference?
If it's 7 p.m. there, it's 2 hours. It's 7 hours.
7 hours. Okay, cool.
It's noon here.
So you're working with Soteria?
Say it again?
You're working with Soteria, the
Yeah,
company?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm the founder. I'm the CEO.
Oh, okay. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too. Yeah, no, I'm on a retreat this week, which means I'm working, but I'm away from the office. So I'm in the mountains of North Carolina and uh,
What part of North Carolina?
so actually in the mountains of Tennessee. I'm in Sevierville near Gatlinburg.
Okay.
Yeah, so near the Rocky Mountain uh, National Park, which is where I've been trying to spend my evenings, uh, just getting out a little bit. The theory is that I take some time to look at things from a big picture the practice is about half the time is spent catching up from the stuff that I didn't have time to get done while I was in the office, and then half the time is actually that. So it's not as holistic as it
I presume
we
this
set
is
out.
not easy.
Sorry, what was that again?
I presume it is not easy to balance work or to make some work while you're off as well, taking some time off and trying to do something enjoyable with the work. I think this is quite difficult because you could be easily overwhelmed with the information, actions, things to do. How do you manage about that?
Yeah, no, that's right. And you know, like in practice, like one of the things I wanted to tackle this week was to just really do a deep dive and educate myself on safety practices at the pack level. So we do them at the cell level. And that's truthfully, I could spend a full week reading and educating myself there. But the practice is it's Wednesday, and I'm probably going to get started after this call on that. Right. So the first 2 days were catching up from stuff that was still hanging over from last week and keeping up with the business this week. So it is better than being in the office, but it's not a real seclusion getaway. So
Brian, I was just looking. We are recording the session. I'm looking real quick who registered. I know a couple of our members were not joining because they're already invested,
right,
which
gotcha.
is good for you. And they invested at a prior round.
Yep.
Are
we waiting for any more, do you think, or should we go ahead and get started?
I would go ahead and get started. So weird.
Your dogs are very well behaved.
Thank you. Why don't we get started? And like I said, I'll send out the recording to everyone. Like for Eventbrite is not working, so I can't pull up. Anyway, why don't we get started? If you want to share your screen, we'll go ahead.
Yeah, I'll do that. And with this small crowd, I think we can just break in for questions as I go and keep it kind of informal. So first, my background, so Brian Morin, co-founder and CEO of Soteria. My background, I'm a physicist by training, so bachelor, master's, PhD, materials physics, 10 years first at big companies, first DuPont, and then Milliken, about a $5 billion textile company. And then in 2004, I became an entrepreneur in the textile industry and moved from textiles to batteries in 2011. And Soteria is really the culmination of all that. And so I'll now switch to kind of the company. First, Elliot, do you want to introduce yourself real quick? I catch you on mute or away.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Elliot Reef. I'm the CFO of the company, and hopefully be working with all of you general team as you move forward with Soteria.
Yeah. So 2 things to know about Soteria. The first is that we have a technology that makes lithium-ion batteries inherently safe. And by that, I mean they're far more resistant to damage and abuse and manufacturing defects, with the probability of a fire going down by about a factor of 10, right? So the 200 e-bike fires in New York City last year would be somewhere between 0 and 20, but at least an order of magnitude lower. And then the second thing about Soteria is that we believe that safety technology should be available to everybody. So we are taking it to market through a broad-based licensing business model supported by an industry-wide consortium that we founded and that we run. Today, over 125 active members, including NASA, Mercedes, Bosch, Motorola, Lenovo. You see the other names there, Jaguar Land Rover, and a few others. So the lithium-ion battery industry has suffered from a drumbeat of negative multi-billion-dollar public events. The grounding of the 787, the recall of the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, and then in recent years, Ford, BMW, Tesla, Hyundai, and Chevrolet have all had recalls due to electric vehicle fires, spontaneous fires. And that's exactly the problem we solved. And then even more recently, there's been 2 EV container ship fires, one of which sank and the other of which they were able to rescue without the fuel oil spilling. But those are also potential major, both economic and environmental catastrophes. So our vision is inherently safe batteries everywhere, and that's all applications from watches to airplanes. And what it looks like in practice, what you have here are cell phone size cells. On the left, they are standard cells. On the right, they are identical, except that our technology has been implemented. And then what you'll see if you look at the left is you'll see first a shower of sparks and then material burning, right? So the shower of sparks ignites the battery and then the materials burn. With our technology, there's no shower of sparks, so no release of the electrical energy. And because of that, the flammable materials never catch fire and burn. All the flammable materials that are on the left are also in the batteries on the right. But because we prevent the release of the electrical energy, the chemical energy, the burnable materials never catch fire. So this is the same thing now again with cylindrical cells. The top is a nail penetration test. Again, on the left, you have the standard cells with the shower of sparks and then the flames. And on the right, you have our materials. The top was a nail penetration. The bottom was a 90-degree crush test. Again, ours don't catch fire, theirs do. So when people ask me how much safer is it, I'm like, well, all the way safer, right? It doesn't catch fire. So this picture gives me a lot of comfort because this is what I imagine the cells would look like after you drive your electric vehicle into a tree at 90 miles an hour. They're bent, they're crushed, they're penetrated, but they didn't catch fire. They won't reignite, which is a big problem in electric vehicles. Even after they put the fire out, there's some stranded electrical energy that will reignite the batteries. These cells also continue functioning. So 6 hours after we did the test, we discharged the cells and got at least 85% of the energy out. And the only one that was below 90 was the one at the top where we drove a 1-inch steel ball all the way through the cell. So clearly damaged a good bit of the electrodes when we did that. So this now, the cells functioning after they're damaged is something that is unique to our technology. So there's no other technology that does this. We're going to illustrate that here. This is a drone that flies with 3 of those cell phone size cells. Drive a nail through one of them, leave the nail in, and then put the pack back on the drone. And you can see right here, when he moves his thumb, you'll see that the nail is still there. And the punchline, we then took this drone and flew it. If you look straight across, you can see the nail. The punchline is that with the nail in there, it flies the same as it did without the nail there. That it flew for 22 minutes undamaged, and damaged it flew for 21 minutes and 18 seconds. And here you can see the nail sitting right through the cell, and the drone is still flying just like it did before. So it's a working battery that's been damaged. Clearly important for anywhere where there's a potential to damage the cells, and anywhere where damage to the cells can be a real problem. So we think about critical spaces, underground, at sea, up in the air. All of those are critical environments, hospitals, data centers. So,
Hey, Brian, to interrupt, did you get that idea from watching one of the Matrix movies where somebody keeps fighting with a nail in their neck or something?
I didn't, but we have a couple movies. It wasn't my idea, and we have a couple movies.
Okay.
Maybe where they got the idea from.
Okay.
So this was our engineer at the time had the idea, and it could very well be right.
Okay.
We talked about them working after they were damaged, and the first thing we did was discharge the cells, which produces a nice graph, but it's not nearly as exciting as seeing the thing moving. So yeah, good thought.
Okay.
Our technology has 3 pillars to our value proposition. The first is the revolutionary safety that you just saw. We eliminate the root cause of cell ignition. We're really the only technology that addresses the root cause. And then the cells keep working after they're damaged. the next one is full compatibility with the industry. And this is really what allows our business model, that it's a drop into existing manufacturing. It's compatible with all existing electrodes, electrolytes, all existing form factors, all existing manufacturing process technologies. We get to what we do by taking metal out of the battery, and I'll explain that in a minute. But because of that, there's a natural reduction in the weight and the material cost. And then for almost all applications, the electrical performance is indistinguishable. It's the same as it is without our technology. And then the last pillar is the industry support we get through our consortium. We put our technology out as an open innovation platform, and think of it as the Microsoft IBM model of taking the PC to market, where now we're asking the consortium members to develop the printers and chips and disk drives and software to make the whole thing work. And in our case, instead of those items, it's now going to be the equipment and the materials and the cells and the devices that'll eventually take it to market. But they're doing that because that's the product lines that they are going to be selling. Because they are doing it, it now sets up a broad and robust supply chain that'll be acceptable to the industry, the automotive and the electronics industry, and it also can be a global supply chain because we're licensing anywhere in the world. So now how it works, and we'll look first at the left, but every lithium-ion battery has 5 basic layers. Aluminum and copper foils bring the electricity in and out of the battery. There's the anode and cathode materials are coated onto those foils, and that's what holds the lithium and stores the energy. And then in between the anode and the cathode is a plastic membrane called a separator, which allows the lithium to go back and forth, but keeps the electrodes electrically isolated. And every lithium-ion battery fire starts in the same way. Something compromises that membrane and allows energy to flow. That energy creates heat, which causes the membrane to shrink. And when that membrane shrinks, that's where you get the shower of sparks, releasing all the electrical energy, which ignites the battery on fire. So we're going to do 2 things differently. The first is we replace that plastic membrane with a nanofiber-based non-woven separator. So we start with textile-grade fibers. They're abundantly available, inexpensive. Fibrillate them down to nanofibers using paper-making techniques. Once we have that nanofiber pulp, we then reinforce that nanofiber pulp with fibrillated Kevlar. The Kevlar is stable to 500 degrees Celsius. So now this separator is never going to melt or shrink. And the next thing we do is we replace the aluminum and copper foils with metallized film. So think a potato chip bag or a party balloon. It's a thin sheet of plastic with enough metal on each side to run the battery, but not enough to drive the high current densities that'll light the battery on fire. So now when you get that short circuit, something compromises the membrane, the separator doesn't shrink, so it maintains its shape, and it's actually the current collector that pulls away from the nail or the internal short, stops the flow of energy to that spot. And so instead of getting the shower of sparks, you break the flow of energy to that spot, and you end up with a working cell with a dead spot in the middle. And that's what you saw in the nail penetration test. The nail went in, the current collector pulled away, the rest of the battery kept working. So this is our consortium spread throughout the supply chain. You can see on the left are the large equipment and material manufacturers. In the middle are about 30 cell builders that are building our technology into their cells. And then on the right is a growing list of end users that will be taking those cells to market in their devices.
Brian, can you elaborate and explain how the consortium really works, how people get involved?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. There's really 2 ways. So the first is that we have at any given time about 100 projects going on within the consortium. And that's where we are now. We have about 150 projects that are finished and about 100 that are ongoing. And those projects can be anything from a new piece of equipment or a new material or a new cell or a new device. And so that's the first way, is working on our technology. And then the second, we are turning the consortium into a general place to talk about battery safety. And so because of that, we're setting up committees to talk about different ways to accomplish safety, what the problems are, how they can be addressed. And so people join in that way also, and that becomes a networking opportunity, a discussion and education opportunity. And for us, it becomes an opportunity, and you'll hear about this more at the end of the presentation, but it becomes an opportunity for us to understand what are the unaddressed problems that are out there, and are there opportunities for us as a business to step in and address them? And so it's really two ways. It's engaging with our technology or engaging with the rest of the consortium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and your main benefit is people are using your battery. You don't get compensated any other way at this point.
Yeah, so these consortium members are paying a small membership fee. It does amount to something like $700,000 or $800,000 of revenue for us annually from the consortium membership fees, but the real returns are going to come when they license the technology and pay the royalties associated with that. Today we have 3 licensees, but I'm hoping to sign up a bunch more before the end of the year.
Okay.
I can see that you
How does the
Malcolm,
go ahead?
hey, just a quick question. If before we get too far ahead, can you go back where you show the stack? Just I think you're one slide before this. Yeah. So you mentioned, and I appreciate it. You mentioned that your technology wasn't perfect in the sense that it's not going to prevent 100. It's not 100% preventative. So what kind of conditions are most likely to lead to failure in your solution? Is it mostly use, or is it environmental? A lot of the fires you read about seem to happen when in storage. So, or is it a combination of both?
And I think so here you have to get a little bit of my guessing as well as our knowledge, right? So the knowledge is that when we do damage to a cell, especially one that contains the current collector, it's extraordinarily difficult to make that cell catch on fire. It either involves a really volatile set of electrodes or a really large cell or an awful lot of damage. When we do side-by-side testing, it's at least 10-to-1 difference in terms of, so I'll give you an example. We sent some cells out for third-party testing. They did 12 nail penetration tests. With the control cell, 11 out of 12 failed, and with ours, 11 out of 12 passed, right? And what was different between the one cell on each side and the others, I don't know, right? And so I think it's just statistical at some point that's why we say, at least an order of magnitude fewer. But what we don't promote is to stop using other safety technologies when you use ours. So, we've had some VCs propose, hey, when you put your technology in, do you need to eliminate all the other safety technologies? And does this become a cost savings mechanism? And yeah, there's a little bit of cost savings, but not because you're taking out other safety technologies. Just like when we put in the airbag, we didn't take out seatbelts, right? We all still wear our seatbelts. It's the same thing. And I think it's going to go the same route as the airbag did in automotive. It's going to start with luxury automotive. It's going to be used with all the other safety technologies. And then it's going to trickle its way down and eventually be ubiquitous. But yeah, that's where we are. And then if I gave you my intuition, there's a lot of kind of spontaneous fires now. I think we eliminate the spontaneous fires. We cannot catch the fire on cell without damaging or abusing it in some way. But we also haven't tested millions of cells and cycled them millions of times to see if one of them might catch fire when you do that. But we're going to greatly reduce, if not completely eliminate, the idea of a spontaneous battery fire.
So, Brian, you mentioned 11 out of 12 times your battery did not fail at that independent test.
Yep.
The one that did fail, what happened?
We don't know. And honestly, we spent a lot of time wondering if they just, mixed up a cell when they opened the package, right? Because when we tested, 12 out of 12 fail for the controls and 12 out of 12 pass for us. But even if it is, that they had all the cells right, what happened that one time, I don't know, right?
You would think they'd want to share them with you, but
yeah, no, well, they don't know either. So they did tell us everything they could. The problem is the one that's burned up is burned up. The control cell that wasn't burned up really was a control cell. So they disassembled it, they discharged it. It really was a control cell. So every now and then you can damage the cell in the same way and it won't catch fire for whatever reason on the inside of the cell. And I believe that, right? So, the goal on this is to make a pass. They got one pass out of 12, not good enough. We got 11 out of 12. I wish it was 12 out of 12, but 11 is the data, and we're going to live with data. So when we talk to the fire department of New York, we're not telling them that our technology will eliminate battery fires. We're telling them it'll reduce it by at least an order of magnitude. And what they hear is, okay, there's 180 fires I didn't have to go to last year if your technology was there. That's 180 times that 5 or 8 trucks are getting out on the road and firemen are putting themselves in harm's way. That's real for them, right? Okay. So next section is to talk about our commercial traction, and we've really got 3 areas where there's commercial traction. The first is in single cell devices. The places where it's going first are cell phones and tablets that are designed either for critical environments, so explosion-proof environments, or for just ruggedized applications like warehouses and chemical manufacturing and what have you. The next one is multi-cell devices, but all using standardized cylindrical cells. And I'll talk about those, but primarily e-bikes, robots, material handling, and a few others. And then the last one is luxury automotive, where we've got projects with a few different manufacturers. So first, the explosion-resistant cell phone. This will be coming out. We thought it was coming out in the 3rd quarter of this year, but we had a delay, so it looks like it's going to be 1st quarter of next year. And this with Ecom is going to be somewhere between 50 and 100,000 devices. We're also working with their largest competitor, which is going to have about the same number of devices. And then when it gets into, this is for cell phones, when it gets into their tablets, it's for each one of them, it's going to be about 2 or 3 times that many. So we're looking all told at about 1 million devices in this market. And then right behind them are Motorola and Zebra, which is a company that makes the scanners for places like Walmart and FedEx and UPS and what have you. So the next area where we're getting traction is e-bikes, and I'll talk for a minute. The e-bike market today is experiencing, basically every large city is experiencing between 1 fire every 2 days and a fire every day. And we've got this validated now in New York, obviously, but San Diego, London, Shanghai, several other cities. And so we started a project to understand that. We've taken apart a couple of dozen e-bike battery packs and understand what the best practices are and what the worst practices are inside of those battery packs. And then we're going to be publishing what the best practices are, but then also coming out with a set of batteries ourselves that fit those best practices and also incorporate the Soteria technology with the idea that we can fix this problem, right? This is, dozens, if not 100 deaths every year. It's hundreds, if not 1,000 fires. And every fire is a building fire. Many of them flatten the building. So this is, in the cities, it's a big problem, but the cities aren't willing to give up their e-bikes because it takes so much congestion off the roads. And honestly, it gets them their Starbucks in 15 minutes. And that's what's important to them, at least at some level. So the last one is luxury automotive. We have projects with each of these companies, and one of them, and under an NDA, I can say who, but one of them has agreed, or we have a letter of intent for them to invest $1 million in our this round of investment, and that'll come at the end. So we still have a few $1 million to raise before they come in, but they'll be coming in at the end.
So noticeably absent is Tesla. Are they involved in this at all?
Tesla, not today. So they're aware of what we're doing. They're interested in what we're doing. but we need to grow up some and get into some other applications before they're going to take a serious interest, right? They're making, they're the only one making millions of cars every year. And so we got to get into millions of other things before we get into millions of cars. And that's just the nature of the beast. It is absolutely the home run for us. We'll collect when we get into Tesla, we'll be collecting hundreds of millions of dollars of royalties, right? Our royalty is going to be between $100 and $200 per car, depending on how the car is designed. And so Tesla would be in the middle of that. So 2 million cars would be $300 million in royalties. So we got a little growing up before we get there. So the interest we've got so far, the strongest interest is from the luxury manufacturers. And we have projects with both Mercedes and Jaguar that are both moving towards getting into production cars. And one of them is obviously going a little bit faster than the other because they're making the investment.
And I'll assume that Ford and the other big three in Detroit are aware of you, but aren't part of the consortium yet.
Yeah, they're aware of us. And there are people within those companies that truly care about safety. But let me, without being too jaded, they've got other things besides safety they have to work out before their cars are going to be accepted in the market, right? And so they're focusing primarily on those other things. The biggest is getting the right car designed, right? Getting something designed that people will buy. But GM did have a $2 billion recall, and Ford's had a recall also. So it's important to them, but they don't. But the middle market car companies don't tend to move first on safety. They tend to copy on safety, and that was true with airbags, with anti-lock brakes, with everything else that's safety, with radar. So it'll likely also be that way with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You may continue.
Okay, great. So if you look at the competition, safety is an important problem, and people are addressing it in a lot of different ways. The one on the left I call more of the same, which is pack level solutions. And the problem there is that it doesn't address the root cause of cell ignition. And because of that, you're always going to have some level of fires, no matter how much protection you put around it, it's still going to catch fire on the inside. We address the root cause. Our technology layers in very nicely with all the pack level solutions, so that there's no competition between them. It just adds to it. Solid state is a little bit different. They do try to address the root cause. The challenge is that solid state batteries are just not ready for production. They've been 5 years away for 20 years, and I expect 5 years from now, they'll still be 5 years away, despite billions of dollars being spent trying to mature the technologies. Our technology is still far more mature than the most mature quantum solid state technology. And then once again, our technology, especially the current collector, is compatible and does help. We have 4 solid state battery companies in our consortium working with our technology, using it to make their batteries safer. So we think when solid state does finally come to market, that we'll be an integral part of it. And we're certainly going to try to help them make their batteries more safe. And then the last one is, it's lithium iron phosphate, but it's also sodium ion and a few other kind of heavier, less expensive batteries that have a lower energy density. They are safer, but our technology, again, layers in, makes them safer than they are, makes them also lighter weight. And so our technology should also be used with that. And so the overall theme is, our technology is an airbag, and none of these guys have airbags. They have other things, but an airbag makes everything safer. And so it should be used with all of them eventually.
Yeah, it's interesting. I send out a newsletter once a month, and I write a short article in each. And the article this month is, "Don't be better, be different." And you're different. You're not trying to be better and just do what everybody else is doing. You're fixing the problems that exist and preventing them from happening.
Yeah. We address the root cause of battery safety, and that we're really the only ones that are addressing the root cause of the thermal runaway. So I recently named a leadership team, and I did it because I wanted these three people, Amy, Kelsey, and Haley. They really personify what I want us to be seen as outside the company in the market and also inside the company. So the words I chose are humble, kind, and reliable. And what I want you to think about is that handyman who shows up, asks if there's anything he can help with. Once he understands the problem, he just fixes it quietly, cleans up his mess, tells you he's done, thanks you for the opportunity, accepts his payment, obviously, and then tells you to call him the next time you need something. And that's who we want to be to the industry, is just someone they can rely on, but also who puts their interests first and does it in a way that is kind, right? Amy runs our global consortium, Kelsey does management, and Haley has taken over the new business we bought, Voltiplex, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. We also have a deep bench of experienced managers. Elliot, our CFO, you met. Jean Lee runs our Chinese office. Jean Lee and I have been friends for 25 years. Jurgen runs our European office, and he and I have been friends for 10 years. And then Joanna helps Elliot with fundraising and other kind of strategic finance activities. Our advisory board is diverse and active. I'll highlight a few people. We meet quarterly for about a half day, a little less, 2.5 to 3 hours, and talk about the whole business. Randy was a direct report to Jack Welsh at GE. He's our primary financial, gives us our best financial insight. And then Sunho, Brad, and John are they're each senior executives in the lithium-ion battery industry for more than 10 years each. And so they're where I get our industry knowledge, plus Ryan, who's a little bit newer, but also has kind of customer perspective.
Can you go back one slide?
Yep.
Of these gentlemen, how many have invested and how many are being compensated with either equity in the company or otherwise?
Good question. So investors include Randy, Bob Moran, Bob Bixler, Sunho, John, and Ted. So it looks like 6 or 7 of the 10 have invested. And the only other Bill's also an investor. And equity compensation, all of them get some level of equity compensation.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've won a bunch of awards from various different places, and to the point where we stopped applying for them. So now revenue sources, this year we're going to be north of $2 million in revenue, a little less than the 2.7 we said at the beginning of the year, but I'll show where we are in a few minutes. And then most of that, or about half that's going to come from our memberships and other consortium revenue. That revenue stream will grow, but it'll never be giant. The licensing and royalties this year is going to be somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000. And it is growing. So it was $250,000 last year. It's growing, and that's the one that can grow to over $1 billion eventually. The cells and packs comes from a business that we bought last year, making packs out of 18650 cells. So this is the multi-cell packs that I was talking about. That business, when we bought it, had about $700,000 in revenue, and this year it looks like it's going to be at least the 1.1 we predicted, and maybe in the 1.2 or 1.3 range.
So, why did you purchase that company? What was the overall strategic objective?
Yeah, it does a couple things. So it came after I studied the businesses and the histories of 2 companies, ARM Holdings and Qualcomm. And both of them have a broad-based licensing business model that's been very successful, right? Multiple billions of dollars a year in royalties. But at the beginning, each of them had to provide products themselves first to prove it in the market, and then allow other people to copy it through the licensing. And so this is our way of bringing our technology to market first. We have 18650 cells with our technology in them that we're now starting to build into the packs and deliver directly to customers. And then once we're doing that, we figure everybody else is going to have to copy us. But it was the way to get started there. It's not our intention to grow that to be a giant business or an exclusive business. Everything we learn there, we're going to teach to our competition, but that's going to be the fastest growing part initially. So financial progress, organic growth has been 50% a year now for several years. And then because we made the purchase last year, we're growing at more like 85% the year over year this year compared to last year, including the purchase. Our target exit is, and actually I'm gonna switch presentations now and jump to what's an update presentation, but has it highlights a few of the recent updates. Since normally I don't have time to do both of these, so you guys have given me more time. So this is
as an aside, I think everybody who's ever presented to us is so thankful we give you an hour.
Yeah, it's
because most of the time you get 5 minutes.
Yeah,
pardon me.
5 or 10 minutes, you can hardly get the basics of the story out, let alone actually tell it. So yeah, no, thank you. You're exactly right. So this is progress since our Series A. So the round we're raising now is a Series B. So everybody wants to know, hey, what did you do with the money you got? So we did 6 major updates. The first is the purchase of Voltiplex, which is this pack company. The next was to leverage that to get a partnership with Nanotech Energy to build cylindrical cells with our current collector in it, so that we can get them out into multiple different markets. The third was addressing the e-bike problem that I touched on a minute ago, and I'll talk more about. We also have a project that came out of the consortium being oriented towards safety in general to address the fact that fire alarms are terrible at detecting battery fires. The particles that come out of a battery fire are too small for the fire alarms to detect. So we've come up with a detector that should work much better. The patent pool is really a vision for the future that I'll explain, and then the automotive OEM investment commitment is another milestone. So first, our financial progress. I showed this before. Now I have it in kind of half year instead of quarterly, so there's not so many bars in the bar chart, but the same data is there in the same punchline. So Voltiplex is a company that does their manufacturing in China, sells primarily in the U.S. and Europe, sells into robotics and medical, material handling, industrial markets, and sells packs that are bigger than a cell phone but smaller than an EV. And there's a bunch of applications there. It's very fragmented, so it's a nice market to go into. Brought about $700,000 of legacy revenue, and they're a good battery pack company, but we're going to try and turn them into the safest battery pack company, using the cells from Nanotech Energy plus what we've learned from the e-bike project. So I hope you'll hear that all these things are kind of related to each other, and they build into each other. So with Voltiplex, we're now consuming and selling cells, and we have a sales force to do that. So we agreed with Nanotech Energy for them to develop 18650 and pouch cells to help us with those first 2 markets that I talked about. So they're making the cells for e-com, for Zebra, for Motorola, and then also developing these 18650s for us to take to all the other Voltiplex customers, which these are U.S. manufactured, safest cells in the world. The high-end markets are going to very much resonate with that story. So we expect that business to grow very quickly, starting in the first quarter of next year. We're just getting the first cells now. We need about a quarter to qualify them and build a couple batches to make sure they're okay, and then we can start delivering next quarter.
I'm going to interrupt. Christine, you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Malcolm. So do I understand correctly, Voltiplex is a Chinese manufacturer, and you have licensed your technology for their use?
So Voltiplex is now the company. We own them, and we're using contract manufacturing out of China. So that came to us, but we're expanding that we're looking at both U.S. partners and partners in India to expand that manufacturing base.
So with the Chinese manufacturing, are you giving them your intellectual properties for that manufacturing?
There's a couple of answers to that question, and you're hitting on something that's important. So when we give our technology to the Chinese manufacturer, we're giving it to them in the form of cells that have the technology into it. And so they're not able to reverse engineer, nor is our partner interested. They're not a cell builder, so they just want to have safe cells and sell them. However, We have published our technology. We've shared what it is, and there are companies in China who have very much taken that and run with it. We have a couple of active copycats in China. Our patents haven't yet issued in China. Now we're taking a very aggressive stance to get them to issue. But now you got to hear the heart of the company. We want everybody to use our technology. We don't want to, so the whole, we're going to stop people from using it. If we do that, we actually hurt somebody. And I'm not willing to hurt anybody. And I hope you just hear that. That's the heart of the company. However, we do believe we should collect royalties for the inventions that we did and the work that we've done to mature and promote the technology. Once we have, where we have active patents, we will collect those royalties. So if they ever sell outside of China, we will collect royalties for what they sell out of China. And when we get our patents to issue in China, we will use that to collect the royalties also. So it's a little bit of a, on the one hand, it's good because they have completely validated the technology all the way through to production. On the other hand, what a pain in the butt, because they copied us, and it's very clear that that's what they've done. And I'm not going to give the full story, but it's very clear that that's what they've done. And it started with person-to-person meetings, but then they invested heavily in copying us. So
I'm curious. Is it cheaper for them to copy you and go this route versus just licensing from you?
I think it's how some companies have a not invented here. I think in China, it's kind of a mark of pride to copy something from the US and put it on the market. Right.
Okay.
So we haven't made it expensive to pay the royalties. And we've talked with the people who are copying us, and their opinion is they very clearly state, well, you don't have any patents, so we're not doing anything wrong. And in that sense, they're right. Our patents haven't issued in China. They will. And so they haven't said, oh, when your patents issue, we're going to either stop or we're not going to pay royalties. They've just said, hey, we haven't done anything wrong because your patents haven't issued. And somebody is opposing our patents in China. So there's a little bit of, and I'm not a big government conspiracist, but there's a little bit of, China versus US going on behind the scenes. And we don't take that position. We take the position, and let me just say it, every life is valuable. Our technology can save lives. We want to be a company without borders. And I know that's not popular in today's world, but we want our technology to be used by everybody, and we want almost everybody to pay royalties. And I don't think we'll be perfect in policing that. And that's just what it is, right? However, this business model has worked very well for some very good companies who face the same struggles. And so, at some point I will probably be hiring a headhunter to pull some legal counsel out of Arm Holdings or Qualcomm, but that day is not yet today, right?
Could you please just comment for 2 minutes on why you didn't pursue worldwide patents? Did you pursue just domestic?
Oh, no. Let me be very clear. We have pursued worldwide patents. They are in prosecution in China and have not yet issued. They will issue, but we have to there's always a prosecution phase. It's always slower internationally than it is in the US. And so the US patents always issue first, or the company you file in first always issues first, and the other ones are usually lagged by 2 or 3 years. And that's where we are. We did at the very beginning pursue international patents. We have patents filed primarily Europe, the US, Canada, Australia, India, China, Japan, Korea, a couple other countries, Brazil sometimes, Taiwan sometimes. But yeah, no, we pursued global patents from the very beginning. Right. We're just working with the Chinese patent system, which is a little anti-America right now. Right. And so I'll just say everything in China is going slow. I don't think that's our fault. I think, there's bigger things than Soteria going on that's making that happen.
But they're also going to probably, where my mind's going is because I've got some experience with intellectual property theft by Chinese.
Yeah.
So they're going to use the technology. They're not necessarily going to give attribution of the technology to you unless they're forced to with a patent that you pursue. And that's going to be years down the road, and they're already going to be, we've given up a competitive advantage.
So, I mean, yes and no. Our business model is for them to use our technology. right? That's our business model. I want them to use our technology. Once we have patents, we need to make them pay royalties or stop, right? And if they refuse to pay royalties, we'll use the court systems to make them stop. But yeah, could they be paying royalties now? Sure, but I don't have the patents issued in China, and they have not come outside of China. I will say it's very easy to tell if our technology is on the inside. Any jury will be able to look at the parts that come out of a battery and say, oh yeah, this one's plastic and that one's metal, therefore, right? So it's not complicated to be able to tell. So enforcing is not going to be difficult, right? Because it's a fairly simple story. And so, yeah, if we were trying to be the only one selling it, we would have given up a competitive advantage, but we're not. We want them to use it. I don't care who uses it. We want everybody to use it. And so the business model is built for this. Right? It's different from almost every other business model out there where somebody wants to have the exclusive on their technology. We don't. We want everybody to use it. So I hope
The
that
one
makes
thing
sense.
the one thing I'm wondering about is you didn't say it in your use cases, but I assume that there's a military advantage uh, to the technology. And in that case, if I'm the State Department or I'm the Pentagon, and I'm thinking about the militarization of the Chinese Coast Guard right now, that I'm thinking that it would be a very good thing for us to have protected this technology. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate here. I'm just, it's all
So,
front of mind.
so I'm not going to second guess the government. The government has chosen to protect and they do have policies on what can be exported and what can't. They've protected very high energy density batteries, but not very safe batteries. And so whatever wisdom they applied, whether they truly care about people and want everybody to be safe, or whether they, or whether they thought that, high energy density batteries actually conveyed the biggest competitive advantage for them. But they certainly had the opportunity to protect safe batteries and chose not to. And so we are operating completely with the complete and total blessing of the U.S. government in doing what we're doing, including working with several of our consortium members who are building batteries with our technology for the U.S. government directly. And we're not working with anybody who's building batteries that we know of, at least for foreign governments. But yeah, no, they had the opportunity to make a different set of rules than the ones they made, and the ones they made were to protect high energy batteries, not safe batteries. So on the other hand, we do think safety is going to be important in the military, and certainly there's people in the Army who and other branches who think so also, and there's active projects going on with several of our consortium members. Our strategy is to support them, not to try to become a direct supplier to the military, right? Okay, so we talked about e-bikes. This one's important, and it's a completely different direction for us, but one we couldn't leave behind. So I'm going to tell a story, and then you'll understand. So the story is there's a man in Brooklyn who he rides his e-bike in and out of Manhattan every day. He lives in a walk-up apartment, which means he's got an entrance at street level and a foyer and a stairwell, but then the apartment's upstairs. Parks his e-bike in the foyer, runs an extension cord down to charge it. One day after work, it catches fire. He doesn't know until the whole foyer and stairwell are consumed in flames. He's able to get two of his children out one of the windows, but he's not able to get his other three children out, and they passed away. Had he known before the bike caught fire that it was catching fire, he could have run down the stairs, kicked the bike in the street, and it would have had a completely different outcome. The problem is that smoke alarms only happen after the fire, and they're really bad at detecting the smoke that comes out of the battery itself. They actually only will detect whatever the battery ignites and catches fire. Then they'll detect the smoke from that, but the battery itself, they won't detect what comes out of the battery. So knowing that problem, the solution was actually readily in front of us. We're taking some sensors that are built into battery packs for companies like Tesla and the other large EV manufacturers, and we're repurposing them for this and building a lithium-ion battery fire detector, which is going to be focused on just lithium-ion batteries. The idea is that you'll keep it in your garage where your power tools and e-bikes and EV are all charging. And I can see this being mandated in new construction within a couple of years. I can see it being in every Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart, next to the e-bikes and the power tools, next to the chargers and the batteries. And so we're filing the patent. I'm literally reading it this week. We're filing the patent. We're going to launch the product at CES in January and hope to be in the big box stores by the end of next year. We're using a very large contract manufacturer, $60 billion company, to do the manufacturing for us. So this product by itself could be a startup, and it's kind of a startup within a startup. We think that within a few years, it's going to add between $30 and $50 million to our revenue, and certainly is going to be a part of our story as we try to go public.
Just curious, the price of this detector versus the normal one we get, any different?
We think we can price it in the same range. So the detector, which is the guts of this, it's starting at kind of $15, and we think we can drop that to about $8. And so we think we're going to start with something like $100 price point at retail, which will drop into the 60s and 70s, right? And you'll need.
I haven't bought a smoke detector in years, and my understanding is they should probably replace it every few years, but it's a smoke detector costs like $60 now.
Yeah, they're depending on what you have and who made it, they can be anywhere from $50 to $150.
Okay.
Right.
The company you're partnering with, is it a US company or in China?
It's a US company. They have manufacturing all over the world, and we'll probably choose Mexican manufacturing.
Okay.
Right.
And you have a say in where that's being manufactured?
We absolutely do. We absolutely. And this is a salt of the earth US based consumer product manufacturing company that you don't know their name, but they make stuff that everybody uses. And there's only a couple of those, right? Jabil and Flex and a couple others. So it's one of those guys.
Did they find you, or did you find them?
We found them.
Okay.
We started this project less than 6 months ago, and we've got working prototype data, drawings for the final prototype are being produced now. And so this has been very much fast tracked with us because of that story I just told, that we think there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of lives saved by getting this to market. So now you got to hear the heart of the company. And again, we come to the same place. We're going to make it. We're also going to license this technology to Honeywell and First Alert and everybody who's making smoke alarms now, because we believe they'll get it to market faster. And it's more about getting it to market faster than it is about making the last dollar. We will also collect a royalty from them and make sure we enforce our patents, and they'll be filed globally. But it's more about how many lives can we save. We will make a bunch of money by saving lives, right? So let's save the lives first, and we will make a bunch of money, and there are courts to help us do that. And I hate the business model is a little bit messy because of that, but there are honest companies out there also. So.
Okay, thank you.
So now the way to turn us into a copy of Qualcomm and ARM Holdings is to amass a giant patent pool surrounding battery safety that you basically can't build a safe battery without using it. Once we get that, we will have billions of dollars in royalties, just like they have billions of dollars in royalties for the technology needs that they address. So we've talked with Ohio State and Rutgers and now 2 battery companies about setting up a patent pool. And the beauty of setting up the patent pool is that what we're going to use to acquire the technology are tokens, where the token represents a fraction of the future royalty stream. And so in this sense, we're setting up a new currency that we're going to use to acquire patents. So I don't have to use either cash or equity to acquire them. I can use this new currency stream or this new currency, the tokens that we're setting up. The way to make that work is to have both licensees and licensors and a credible group of both, so that people believe this concept's really going to work. I've got 2 of each today. I want 5 or 6 of each before we go public. So this week I'm writing the MOU that I'll be taking out to the market. I've got 4 people signed up who said they'll sign the MOU, and I need probably 6 more before we make a public announcement. If we can do this, this is the big audacious goal that every startup needs. We're going to put our technology in as the cornerstone, but then we're going to acquire all kinds of different safety technologies. The core belief is that safety, everybody should have access to safety. Safety should not be exclusive to anybody because lives are at stake, and that's what's important. And so that's the heart of the patent pool. The monetization is, $5 billion of potential royalties that are out there if we can collect 1% of if we can get everybody to license it. And by the way, both Qualcomm and ARM Holdings are ubiquitous, more than 90% market penetration. If we can get to where they are, we're looking at $5 billion of annual royalties, and that's the target. If we can get the industry to cooperate, it's a big goal. I'll acknowledge it. We've talked about this one, and then our Series B. Last slide. It's a $12 million Series B. We have about 3 million in now, and about 2 in commitments. So we're filled up to about 5 million plus, and that includes the 1 million from the electric vehicle manufacturer. It's a $60 million pre-money valuation, but they're participating preferred shares, so those certainly play off each other. They're very nice shares, and there's warrant coverage to reward the early investors. So Keiretsu's done a full diligence package, and the data room's open.
So 2 quick questions. Which chapter? I used to run the Pittsburgh chapter of Keiretsu. It was part of Mid-Atlantic. Which chapter did the due diligence?
Mid-Atlantic did the due diligence.
So you through Howard.
Yeah, Marome led it.
Okay.
And they hired outside committees for both the market, or outside experts for both the market and the technology. So they did a good job on the due diligence. We have some warts. Those warts are in there. You guys uncovered some of the warts today, right? It is what it is.
Right.
And so, and I hope you hear this. Our philosophy is always to be as transparent as we can, right? So
yeah, it's funny when you say you have warts. If a company presents and doesn't have warts, I run as fast as I can the other way because there's something they're not telling us.
yeah, that's
I
right.
mean, if you didn't have any warts, you wouldn't be raising money. You'd already have everything you need.
Yeah, that's right. And it's rarely that money is the only thing that's keeping a company that's frustrating in the business, right? So
Christine raised the question: have you ever partnered with Carnegie Mellon here in Pittsburgh on anything?
No. I'm aware of Carnegie Mellon. I went to grad school with a couple people who went there, so I know it's a great school,
Okay.
but nothing directly. Yeah.
So they have a Energy Innovation Center, which is an independent, but it's associated with CMU. Is that something you'd be interested in being connected to? Because I know the guy who runs it.
I mean, especially as part of the patent pool, I'd love to see if they have something either already developed or in the works that can affect battery safety, right? Because once we get this set up, I'm going to take that currency and consider it to be, licensed to go shopping. And we're going to go try to acquire some really valuable safety technology. I've already got my eyes on a couple, but I haven't looked hard. And when I start looking hard, I think there's going to be a lot more out there. So yeah, I'd love to be connected.
Christine, do you have any other questions about CMU?
No, but I'm glad that you have connection there. I do too, but I think it's an obvious one. That's especially given that you have a vertical of robotics that you're looking at. Carnegie Mellon is the #1 robotics program in the world.
Love to talk to those guys too.
Yeah.
So why don't we do, I know Rich DeClaudio, who runs the EIC and Energy Innovation Center.
Yeah.
I will I'll talk to Christine and we'll make an introduction. I did not think about it, but I think it's an obviously obvious connection and somebody who both sides can really benefit. And the robotics, again, as Christine said, robotics and autonomous vehicles, which pretty much came out of Pittsburgh also because of CMU, there are obvious connections. But I'll, if you have, I hate to say a form letter, but if you have something you can share with us that we can use as a data point to make introductions, I think that would be great also.
Yeah, I've got a couple page overview of the company and the technology and the consortium that I can send, and then
Okay,
a couple bullet points in an email to point out also,
okay.
right?
Because
Because I'm sure if they're a big robotics area of expertise, then they probably have connections to companies who want that good batteries and safe batteries. So it's a great networking for us, even to just get introduced to their network.
oh yeah, I mean, again, it, it it's really interesting. I wasn't aware of this till probably a year ago, that before double A and single A and C batteries and everything, everybody created their own battery, and there were a million different sizes and shapes, and finally they commoditized batteries. But the same thing with what you're doing, I would think everybody would want to use this
Yep.
if it's safer.
Yep.
And in fact, Christine, you didn't hear me say this, but I yell at my wife every night because she plugs in her Kindle or her cell phone, and she'll go to sleep, and she goes to bed before I do, and I go around and I unplug everything because I don't trust them. And then I get up before her and I hurry up and plug it back in so it's fully charged. But as I always say, it only takes one.
I'm telling
I was gonna say we're recording this. You realize that, right?
Well, I'm the one recording it, but I could have always hit the stop recording button. So
Uh-huh.
so,
Yeah,
anyhow,
I totally get it.
no,
here's
let
the
me.
thing.
It's seriously coming back to um, Apple and Samsung and all the cell phone manufacturers. Will they eventually use the technology you're developing?
It's almost certain, and that's part of what we expect, is that we're starting with these technologies in the critical environments. And once we've shipped a few 100,000 cells, because part of what you got to realize is the big companies are just nervous about new things, and they won't ever admit it, but they are. They always they put on a face of being innovative, but at the end of the day, they're nervous about new things. If it's been used in a few 100,000 cell phones made by somebody else in a niche market, they'll feel much more comfortable bringing it into their market to use it in a few 100 million devices versus a few 100,000, right? But until it's been used in a few 100,000, they're not going to put it in a few 100 million. They're going to wait, right? So Lenovo is a consortium member that we're working with, and they're looking first at side applications, things like their glasses, and everything but the cell phones, tablets, and laptops. And for them, they'll probably go into their tablets before they go into the laptops, because again, it's smaller runs, smaller volumes, less cost sensitive. They're also going at the less cost sensitive ones first, because the first ones are always going to cost a little bit of a premium. But once they're used in volume, the prices will come down also.
Okay. Real quick, Dave had a jump. Normally we only go an hour, but I don't have a problem staying on. Dave had a question. He texted me. Is there any product liability exposure through the license?
Through the license, there is no product liability exposure, right? We have no control over the manufacturing. We're not unable to make guarantees that they're not going to do something wrong in there. So through the licensing, there's none. As we deliver products from Voltiplex, there is some. It's a much smaller number of products that are going to be sent out, and we have insurance to cover it.
Okay. So you want to? Is there anything else on your slide deck?
Yeah, no, I think the last thing is the plan for exit. So yeah, I'll go ahead. Our plan to exit, and you see how a lot of things are coming together, right? Getting the multi-cell packs out and e-bikes and others, getting the patent pool together. As we do that, we're doing that to prep to go public. Our plan is 2025 or 2026 to have a public offering. The comparable companies you see here have an average market cap, and these are companies with only a few $1 million in revenue, right? So some of them are smaller than we are, but the average market cap is over $1 billion. So we think a target IPO with a market cap between $1 and $2 billion after we've achieved at least 10 million in revenue a couple of years from now is a very reasonable thing. If we do that, that's somewhere between a 15 and 30x return on our valuation now. And it seems a reasonable target. So we've set up a committee to advise us on going public. And these are people, primarily, it's made up of people who either know the public markets financially or have exited and taken a company public themselves. We do have a couple, or at least one person on there who's done strategic sales also. But they're there because we get to do it once and we want to do it well. So and that's the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm making some notes here. Hold on a second. Are you familiar with a company called EarthGrid?
EarthGrid.
Troy Helming.
Say it again.
The founder is Troy Helming.
So I'm in the back of my mind, it's ringing a bell, but I'm not sure. It's been a while.
It's a tunnel boring machine that we
maybe not.
Okay, we invested into it, and again, I don't know if there'd be any benefit, but I'm gonna make an intro to a couple companies.
Yeah. And Malcolm, this is Elliot. I know Troy as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I pitched side by side with him at least once.
He was also one of the Pepperdine winners.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I guess it was a couple years ago I became familiar with the Pepperdine competition, which is pretty in depth and there's a lot that goes into it. So to win, I always think if you win that, you've proven something.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're going to be successful, but it proves something. Sure.
Yeah, we were the first ones. We were their first year. There were, I want to say, 2,500 companies that went in, and we came out as number one. So that was shocking for me. Thank you, Elliot.
Oh, that's right, Elliot. You were part of that. So
I was one of the judges. I was donated the scoring technology with my partner to Pepperdine, and we were judges in the first 5 years of the competition. Yeah.
So, Elliot, if you as a follow-up, separate from this, we have and I'll send you the form, an online evaluation form. But I would love to have a conversation with you how you judged in the technology use and everything, because you know, part of this whole the way we do things, and when you said we give you an hour, it's trying to gather as much information up front that we can make an intelligent decision and either say to you, yes, we want to learn more, or simply no. And you may not be happy when we say no, but at least you have a definitive answer. And the worst thing for anyone is when you say maybe. And, and part of the issue on my end is I don't control the money. So it's really up to the members. And, but it's, how you evaluate companies. And our goal as a angel group, or my goal is 7 out of the 10 companies we invest in are successful. So how you evaluate companies, how you make those investment decisions is very, very key. And surrounding yourself with people who know what they're doing and how they evaluate things is very key. So Amid, you have a question, go ahead.
Yes, please. Brian, thank you very much for the awesome presentation, first of all. Are you aware of 2 companies? I have 2 companies in mind, one in the US and the one in the UK. The one in the US is Ionic Mineral Technologies.
Which one is it?
The one in the US one is Ionic Mineral Technologies.
Ionic Mineral Technology, so I don't know them.
Yeah, they are also working in lithium-ion and sodium-ion batteries, and I don't know if they are focused on the energy or the performance or the safety of the battery. But I have a friend. We did a PhD together at the University of Sheffield in the UK. He's the director of the materials there, and
Yeah,
I'm
no.
happy to make an introduction. If you'd
Yeah, I'd
like.
love the introduction, right? We're always looking for other companies to work with, and especially cell builders in that middle part of our supply chain, right? That's where the work's done. So yeah, I'd love to have an introduction.
Yeah, it's located in Vineyard, Utah. And the UK one is Faraday Limited.
Faraday. Yes, I am familiar with Faraday, and I think we're working with them. I'm not sure if they're consortium members or not, but I'm pretty sure we're working with them.
Yeah, again, the same, because I did a PhD at the University of Sheffield. So I know a lot of people who are working at Faraday, and I'm more than happy to make an introduction if you'd like.
Yeah, let me check and see if we're working with them. I think we are, but if we're not, then I certainly want the introduction, right? So I know that company well, and I think we're working with them, but let me check and make sure.
Yeah, another question that might seem trivial, but because my specialty is fuel cells and hydrogen, not battery. So, but the probability of a battery catching fire, is it high during the discharge or the charging phase? Because in your presentation, you made it look like that during the discharging, it's most probably for the battery to catch fire.
So you asked a really good question, and I'm not sure the answer is clear. Is why I'm hesitating. Right, overcharge is certainly a cause of malfunction and fires. And so during the charging phase, it's probably going to come from something like overcharge. During discharge, it can also happen. And during discharge, it's probably going to come because one battery has been overworked compared to the others. So maybe it got hot, or it was a weak cell to begin with, and that got exacerbated over time. But it can happen in both cases. It can also happen when the car's just sitting there, right? Or the battery's just sitting there, and there's about a battery fire a week on airplanes in the U.S., and most of those devices are either being charged or they're just sitting there or under normal use. And those are all small single cell cell phones and tablets. So yeah, there's not a clear answer, right? It can happen under a lot of different situations. Certainly abuse exacerbates it, right? So if it gets too hot, or if it's short-circuited somehow, or if it's physically damaged, right? Those all exacerbate it. But it could be previous physical damage that then just shows up later. So yeah, so there's not a clear answer. And it's not that I don't know the answer, it's that I do know, and I know it's not clear. Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the industry is working on that, right? So
thank you.
Good. So Ahmed, do you have any other questions?
No, thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
Thank you.
So Brian, thank you. I really like what you're doing. And one of the first things I do as an investor, the first question I ask myself is, if this company didn't exist, would the world care? And whether you save one life or 100 lives or whatever it is, you're going to save lives with your technology. So it's something that's needed. Obviously, you have issues isn't the right word, but China is always going to be a pain in the ass to anybody because of how they operate. But you can overcome that. And more importantly, most of the major manufacturers that are going to be part of the consortium are going to abide by the patent, because otherwise it's just a pain for them if they deal with China and then they have to deal with lawsuits later on.
Yep.
So I may be wrong in saying that, but that's just my belief.
No,
So,
if we were charging 10 or 20% royalty, it'd be a different story, but 1 or 2 is,
Right.
everybody can manage that. So,
I mean, it's the kind of same thing. People kind of laugh when I say we charge for us for membership, it's $500. For most angel groups are $25 to $3,000. We charge you $500 to present. Where Connectpreneur and Keiritsu charge you thousands of dollars, and I just I don't want it to be an issue. I want it to be that people say there's a benefit, and right off the bat, with the companies I'm going to introduce you to, there's going to be a benefit, and so. And again, that's for us, what is the value of investing in you? And a couple of, like I said, a couple of our members have already invested, so obviously they like what you're doing too.
Yeah.
So, Dave, I don't know if you're there or if you're still on mute. Do you have any other questions? Okay, I know he sent me a text that he was going to have to jump on and off, so he might have had to jump off for something. So
Yeah.
at that point, thank you, everyone. Ahmed, thank you. If you're interested in learning more about our angel group, just follow up, send me an email, and or connect via LinkedIn. And Brian, I'll be in touch with everything. Any idea when you think the round will be closing?
So it's a rolling close. The end is probably not until sometime in the first quarter of next year. The challenge is we've got 3 or 4 investors who are getting to the second and third call who would take down the rest of the round. But they'll still have to go through their due diligence, and so there's some time, right?
Okay. No, the only reason I ask is we're in the process of doing due diligence on a cyber company here in Pittsburgh. It's going to take some of our time, and as an angel group, if we make one investment a month, I think that's pretty good. And but anyway, so let me do this. I will share the video with everybody, get everything out to everyone, and then I'll be in touch. I am on vacation for a couple of weeks, but I'll be working part-time, so I'll probably be in touch with you during that time.
Yeah.
And when does your retreat end?
Friday. So I'm going back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, I'm actually headed your direction. I go to Duck, North Carolina. So
nice. Where is that?
It's in the Outer Banks. So
in
North Carolina, and this is my 2 former dogs, but I have 2 Goldens, and it's their vacation. They're allowed to run the beach and go in the ocean off leash. So
nice.
I basically I'm too old to really chase them, but I chase them up and down the beach, and
sure,
they have a blast. So
sure, yeah, good.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Elliot, enjoy your flight, and hopefully it'll take off on time.
Yep. Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. Bye.